Hello, everyone. If you've been following my market stats updates, you'll see that this one's a little bit different. What I wanted to do is do a share screen. And the reason that we're a little bit late to get them out to you is because I wanted to wait until I attended the Edmonton Housing Forecast Seminar that the real estate board puts on every year. And essentially, what it is they'll bring in economists from banks, they'll bring in economists from the real estate board, sometimes from CMHC, and then from our local real estate boards as well. And they'll basically just talk about the climate, the economic climate as a whole, from the country standpoint, from the provincial standpoint, from the city standpoint, and how we're affected, not just from a real estate perspective, but obviously that ends up driving down to that conversation. And so this year was really interesting. So they had an economist from ATB, they had an economist from Korea, and a few others that are involved in bringing in business to Alberta. And obviously, if you've been following my market updates, you'll know that I've been very optimistic about what's going to be happening here. And the economists were no different. So there's just so many indications that are leading to some really big things happening in Alberta in general. It's already been happening in Calgary for the past 2 years, and Edmonton is poised, and we're already starting to see the sort of leading indicators and that's actually really going to happen. So, first thing I wanted to do is just kind of talk through what actually happened in 2023. So rather than just a December market update, I want to show you what happened in 2023, and I'm going to pair it with their stats. Basically, what they did, what they predicted would happen in 2023, and how they fared to it. So the more important part is that you just see where the numbers were at. So I'm going to try to walk through it fairly quickly because I tried to record this once already and I realized it was dragging on for way too long and I'd probably lose you all. So I want to try to keep it as short and sweet as possible. Basically, here's what happens. So if you are looking at unit sales, keeping in mind that the last 2 years were record-setting years because of COVID, so now we're back to sort of normal levels. And how are we doing in comparison to the two greatest years in real estate we've ever had in terms of sale numbers? And the news is really good. So their forecast is in this light yellow or peach, whatever you want to call it. The dark yellow is what actually happened. Their predictions were really quite close. They predicted 13,000 or 13,600 sales in the detached category. We almost hit that. The semi-detached, so you're aware, is the duplex product. The row housing is the townhouse product, and then apartment condominiums is obviously everything else. That's pretty self-explanatory. So their numbers were very close. This will make more sense too as I scroll down. One of the nice things is that the apartment condos outpaced what they even predicted, which they were predicting some growth, which is super cool. The 5 year overview of unit sales is what's really interesting. I'm talking really fast so that I can keep you engaged and not have this video super long. So here's what we saw in detached product sales in 2019. Obviously, this was before COVID. 2020 was kind of a mix of the COVID busyness and also the slowness from COVID because the first 4 months nothing was really happening. So the sales didn't really change very much, and obviously we surged in 2020, came back down to life a little bit here in 2022. But the sales on detached products are still doing much better than they were, 2020 and prior. And so these are the two record-setting years. This would be third place. Even if it went back 10 years, you'd still see these numbers being very high. So the same thing with the semi-detached. You can kind of see the trend here that, it's softened, but still much better than it was the years prior. And then your row housing, this is where things start to change. So the row housing obviously is the interest rates are going up and people are looking for affordability. You're starting to see a lot more sales in these row housing as well as the apartments condos. So the row housing was dead even with last year, so that we basically hit another record, beat it by 3 sales. And then the apartments condominiums actually went way up. So while 2022 was a record, 2023 was even bigger, which is fantastic. So where it's a little bit different. So now we've got our forecast predictions in the dark green, and this is what actually happened in the light green. So we outpaced what we predicted. We're still down a little bit from 2022, which I believe you'll see in the next slide. Same thing with semi-detached. We outpaced the pricing that was expected and the row housing, where it's a little bit interesting. Even though the sales were way up in the apartments condos, the average sale price is still down just a little bit. Again, it was mostly because of what was being purchased, and they were the cheaper condos, which is driving the average price down. This is where it's good news. They were expecting the they were forecasting more listings coming to market. We actually want less listings to come to market because that will bring down the supply and demand. And when the level of supply and demand, meaning your months of inventory, is lower, that's when we should expect some price increases. And Edmonton just deserves some price increases. So I think we're getting there. So we brought less homes to market. Here's a summary of our prediction. The unit sales were down 12% from the year before, and this is in the detached product. 16% here, 1%, well, 0.1% in the row housing, and up 13.6%. Excuse me. Pricing was, we're going to work this way. Pricing, the actual pricing was down 3.8%. In the apartment style, basically negligible in the row housing and in the semi-detached, and detached was down 1.6%. Listings were way down on all of them, which is fantastic. So hot selling neighborhoods, I'll probably just skip over this. This is not actually as in, it might be interesting if you live in the areas, but basically what it comes down to when you see the unit sales, what they don't talk about in the forecast is they're just massive areas, and when they're newer, they're going to have more product, more builder product, and so that's why you're seeing these sales. Honestly, they're not super relevant, and where the exception might be is obviously in the apartment stock condos because there was nothing really new that was selling, and so Oliver, but it's the same theory holds true. It's just bigger neighborhoods. So this is where you're seeing all the sales. Hottest selling communities. So this is interesting. Sherwood Park and St. Albert were actually tied dead even for sales when we're excluding Edmonton. Spruce Grove being not too far behind, Leduc not too far behind Spruce Grove, and then rural Parkland County would be all the acreages, of course, and that's a little bit of a lower number, or quite a bit of a lower number, I should say. Our high rollers. So if you're curious to see the highest selling price in Edmonton and surrounding last year was an acreage, coincidentally, that we sold. So that was at 4,475, and then we have one in Westbrook. Had a few here. The highest priced condo was 3 million, and so we've got some good sales. So what are they predicting for this coming year? This is where it's a little bit of interesting. So this graph was used, obviously there was somebody narrating this, and obviously all of the arrows are pointing towards people moving into Edmonton specifically. That was the whole theme of the entire presentation all morning was here's where everybody's moving, which is very encouraging. And I can't actually speak to what they were saying there. They were talking about buying and selling and what's balanced, what's not. I'll skip through the photos where I don't have any context for. Um, this is their forecast. I will skip the suspense and say that I actually think they're going to be wrong. They were pretty close on the last one, so I could be wrong. But if you had missed the or if you'd only seen the first three speakers who were all economists talking about what was happening in the market and what they expected, you really wouldn't have expected this slide to come out, or these slides to come out, which is the Edmonton Real Estate Board essentially kind of saying that they didn't really expect much to happen here. So for new listings, they expect a 4.6% increase, which is just strictly talking about inventory. They're only expecting a 1.2% average sale price. That's for all product types increase, which is, I think, probably really, really conservative, and 2.8% increase in sales. So they do expect a busy year. They just don't expect much happening in price increases. So for here, 492 was the average sale price. They expect it to go up 1% to 497. Semi-detached, negligible again. They've got a mistake here, $5,000 increase on average, a $3,000 increase on row and town housing, and a mild $2,200 increase. Actually, I think I'm off, $2,100 increase on the apartment stock condos. Again, I think these are really conservative. We generally follow suit with Calgary, and don't quote me on the numbers, but I believe Calgary saw a 10% increase last year. And so even if we were kind of halfway there, the consensus with the realtors and what we feel is happening in the area now, especially even with a busier January, is that like we're kind of all thinking like 5% is probably a very reasonable conservative expectation. So, but whoever these experts were, this is what they're saying. So we'll follow suit. Again, some busyness in the detached product area. Detached and condos being the kind of two busier or more higher growth areas. Listing trends, we expect an increase in new listings, especially in the semi-detached. So this is kind of the outlier here, and something fairly mild in the row and townhousing and apartment style condos. There are no builders building apartment style condos that aren't for rent at the moment because the numbers don't actually work. So the expectation of sale prices for condos, it's not working, and so I suspect that we're going to keep absorbing that inventory, and eventually we're going to start to see some price increases on the condos. But we're not going to see that many new listings come to market because we're not going to be competing with anyone new for the most part. There are certainly some homeowners who have owned condos forever that are renting them out and waiting for values to catch up to what they owe or what they're satisfied with. So we will definitely start to see more inventory coming. But it should be I'd say a repeat of this past year. So that was the prediction summary. Essentially, we kind of all talked about that. And even though I feel they were super conservative, it's still very optimistic, and I suspect that we're gonna have some really good years ahead. I believe we're gonna see that coming for the next at least 5 years, barring some dramatic changes we've seen can happen that we don't expect. That's my market update. If you like this style better, let me know. If you don't, let me know. I'm gonna try to be a little bit more. I'm gonna try to bring in some of my own graphs and stuff, and just be a little bit more visual with what I'm doing, and have my face a little bit smaller and the graphs a lot bigger. So, if that's working for you, and if this is too long, let me know. I should generally be a lot shorter, but there was a lot to cover here as we're doing the entire year. And I hope you guys are off to a great start for the year. And if you're thinking about buying or selling, this has been my bad in terms of not sharing this in the past, but we certainly would love to work with you and your friends and family. So if you have anybody that's thinking about buying or selling, please pass our names along, and we'd be happy to help them, and we'll make sure we're taking very good care of them. So have a great rest of your month. Take care. Now I have to learn how to shut this off. There we go.